Hello everyone, today we're talking about my latest purchase from the house of Francesca Bianchi. It's always fancy when I call her the house of Francesca Bianchi, from Francesca Bianchi, you know, one of my most favorite perfumers out there. This is the last fragrance I purchased from her older clutch of fragrances, so it's not something new per se. It's not a new launch. This is Under My Skin. This is a fragrance I wanted to buy for quite some time, and when I'm going to talk soon, don't at me, when I'm going to talk about all of her fragrances again soon, I am going to also mention why. First and foremost, this is a fragrance I didn't like when I first smelled it, simply because I think it's her most animalic scent there is. I don't think I've ever smelled something more animalic, more, raw and unleashed than this one. Maybe Salome from Papillon Artisan. Maybe. They are similar to some degree, but I think Under My Skin is this sort of fragrance that kind of lures you into a sense of security, and a false sense of security, and then when you're trapped, it unleashes all the animalics you can think of. It is quite, it's quite an experience, and I do love animalic scents myself. However, I didn't find this to be wearable when I first smelled it. I tried it on the skin as well, and on my skin it just went crazy, the sour, pissy, unleashed, something. I couldn't imagine myself wearing it. Now that I have it, I did wear this a couple of times. It's great, but it's still, I maintain my position. I think this fragrance is somewhat unwearable. I think it's just too much. Now, to be fair, this fragrance is beautiful. It is gorgeous. I liked it from the very start. I know I'm contradicting myself. I just feel that I can't pull this off. It's just too much for me. So let me tell you, if I can, how this smells. So the opening, the first hours of the fragrance, because this is, again, like all Francesca Bianchi, these are very long lasting. They have a trajectory. They change quite a lot on the skin, their journeys, their experiences. This is very traditional Francesca Bianchi. I don't know when this came out, 2017, so I think it's one of her earlier work. I'm not sure, but I think it's one of, her earliest fragrances. If you're not very familiar with her other scents, unfortunately, I will have to give you some references regarding her other work. Otherwise, I don't know how to do this. So this, in my opinion, stems from two of her other fragrances, which are Angel's Dust. This means sweet, woody iris / rose, very powdery, but very deep, dark, and again, animalic, and very, very sexy, Angel's Dust. And another one is Sticky Fingers, which is this iris patchouli, again, spicy. It's a very beautiful fragrance, that one I find to be perfectly wearable, and Angel's Dust as well. However, the meeting point between the two is this Under My Skin, which is, God, it's everything turned up to the max. Let me just start from the notes. Maybe they will ground me, because there's so many things going on in this fragrance. It's difficult to characterize it. It feels like boozy vanilla at first, very resinous, leathery, but then again grounded, human. It smells of the human body in all its glory. You get the smell of hair, you get a bit of a sweaty smell, you know, everything you can imagine, which is, again, it's beautiful, but it can be a bit too much. So let's start from the notes. The notes cited are spicy notes, and this is indeed spicy. Then they cite black pepper, lavender, which, you know, lavender gives it this fougere-ish, again, a bit sweaty type of feeling. I don't know how to explain this. If you've ever smelled lavender in scents, you know that lavender is something fresh, woody, but it does give you that typical masculine, rather, fougere scent. And then you have grapefruit, which again can veer quite sweaty. Orris root, again, animalic. And as far as I know, this is very rich in orris butter. Then they cite carnation, which is, again, nothing else but a spiciness. Bulgarian rose, powderiness, right? This is not your typical, and the rose isn't that pronounced. It just gives you the sweet powderiness that you can find in angel's dust as well. Then leather, definitely leather, and Peru balsam. Now, this again is very astringent, tonic, has that bite to it. Then you've got castoreum, ambergris, again, tolu balsam, musk, sandalwood, vanilla, oak moss, costus, and tonka bean. As you can see, the notes are quite extensive, and the fragrance itself is very, you know, it's a jumble of things. There's a lot to it. But if you try to focus on its main players, I would say it's a resinous, leathery, sweet, floral, and that can mean both the rose and the iris as well. And the lavender slightly, you know, although lavender isn't a floral scent, not necessarily. And woody. That's it. And this is the false sense of security this fragrance lulls you into, you know. It's pleasant at first. You know, the first few hours, they're amazing. There's this almost soothing, you know. It's not something I say about a lot of Francesca Bianchi scents. It's like it puts you to sleep. It's warm, it's embracing, it's sexy. It's even to some degree comforting and fluffy, you know, even to some degree. And then, and this won't happen now. It won't happen on this scent strip. It happens on the skin. I don't even think it happens to all people. Maybe it just happens on me and a few people I've smelled it on. But after a while, it just becomes more sour, more animalic, more acidic. It veers towards unpleasant. At times, it can even smell as a very unclean public bathroom, and that's not a terribly good experience. So indeed, I do find it quite difficult to wear, quite difficult to pull off. And mind you, even angel's dust has this potential to it. You know, they do share a lot of similar beats, a lot of similar notes, including the animalics. But in angel's dust, everything is kept a bit more under control. Here is just everything is let loose. Now, again, I had to have it. There's something not necessarily addictive, but there's something about obsessive, you know, that's the word. Something that creates an obsession is something I had to have. Because the other two fragrances that I don't have are from Francesca Bianchi, are The Dark Side and Tiger. Now those two are just fragrances I don't like. I don't see myself wearing. They're perfectly fine fragrances, they're just not for me. I find them either boring or just too much jamminess, too much sweetness in Tiger, right? The boring part was for The Dark Side. Now, this one I don't find either boring or, you know, uninteresting. It's just too much, but in the sense that I needed to have this one just as a reference, as something that's just too difficult to wear for me, unfortunately. Now, all that aside, as I said, I did wear it. I am still going to wear it. And how I'm going to wear it, or how I wore it, is just one spray. I cannot go more than one, and trust me, one is enough because it's quite powerful. It doesn't overpower when it's just one spray. You can do it like this. If it's anything more, it just takes over and it's too much. Never forget, these are x-rays. These are not meant to be overspray. These are just meant to be, experienced as something highly demanding. At least that's how I see these things. Now, I know this is a favorite of many, many people, and I can see why, definitely. But let me tell you, in the air, it's already starting to become a tad pissier, a tad more acidic. In the air around you, I'm not sure this fragrance smells pleasant. That's the truth. And I have to say this, a fragrance doesn't necessarily have to smell pleasant, The artistic quality of a fragrance isn't, measured by how pleasant the fragrance smells. We all know this. Well, hopefully. We don't have to agree on this. But this is, the perfect example of a fragrance not needing, not having to smell nice and still being a work of art, because this is, in my opinion, one of the best things I've smelled ever. It's a fact. I know it's a bit contradictory, but it is true. It's how I see things. So I don't know what else to tell you about Under My Skin. It's definitely an experience. I'm both drawn to it, and it's an ambivalence. It's a push-pull situation. I don't know how best to describe this, but it's definitely something I am glad I have, because it's a reference. So this was my review of Under My Skin by Francesca Bianchi. I will, as soon as I'm able, do that whole video. The reason I'm prolonging it is because they're very heavy scents, and it's very difficult for me to smell so many. I think it's more than 15. So many in one sitting. So this is why I'm probably going to be able to do just that one video in one sitting. So as soon as I'm able, I will do that. If you have any other questions, do let me know in the comments. And until next time, remember, fragrance creates memories, and may yours be happy.